Hello, my name is Bridget Becker from Cincinnati State, and I did a disability assignment simulating myself in a wheelchair for 8 hours on Friday, October 6th, 2017. So, who assisted me? My mom assisted me for the first couple hours of the day, and then my roommate Devin assisted me for the remainder. My day started at 9 o'clock and the simulation didn't really end until 7 p.m. Um, so, starting off, ADLs, getting out of bed. So, I had my clothes all set up and ready to go, and I had picked skinny jeans for that day, and that was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So, I had my clothes already, and my skinny jeans, because they're skinny jeans, it just took a little bit more time. Instead of moving it up your leg and then past your kneecaps and whatnot as you're rolling back and forth. Mine was more of like inches of scooting, and then another inch, and then scooting. So it took a long time to get my pants on. Because, it's not like you're going to wear sweatpants every day of your life. So that was interesting and difficult. And then I went ahead and did my slide board transfer over to my chair once I got dressed. And going into my bathroom was a little bit of a struggle. My doorway's wide enough for the wheelchair, but it's just wide enough for the wheelchair. You can't turn the wheelchair at all. You have my doorway, then you have the sink, and then behind the sink is the toilet, and then behind the toilet is the shower. So it's all in a line, and it's very narrow. So my ADLs were a little bit more difficult. I had to put a chair in my bathroom so I could do a slide board transfer from the wheelchair to another chair that was already in my bathroom and already turned at the angle I needed it, and then to the toilet. I also, when I was brushing my teeth, I was sitting in that chair. The sink was pretty high up, but not too high up where I couldn't do what I needed to do. But my mirror, it's up pretty high. So when I went to go do my makeup that morning, I had to get my special little mirror, and I had to hold it while doing my makeup because I don't have a counter. I just have a sink. So I had to hold my mirror with one hand and do my makeup with the other, and that was a little more difficult than what it usually is. So that was my morning ADLs. Now the adaptive equipment that I just used the wheelchair and the sliding board. Most of the picking up of my legs, I did with my arms, or I grabbed a hold of I couldn't really hold my pants, so I just kind of picked my leg up with my arms. House prep. So I had to put a chair in my bathroom the night before so that I was able to perform my ADLs the next morning. And I had to clean my room. I had to clean my room up. I couldn't have any clothes on the floor because I wouldn't have been able to get around in my room if I hadn't cleaned my room. So that's a preparation. That's a house prep for me. The places that I went. So the first place I went was my mom's attorney's office. We had to go there for some property maintenance for a recently deceased family member. So I went to the attorney's office in a wheelchair, and you could get in the building just fine. but the attorney's office was upstairs. But what they did to accommodate for me was basically just she came downstairs and we had the meeting in a boardroom that was on the first level rather than upstairs in her office. And then so we returned home, and oh, yes, real quick, before I forget, I had the sports wheelchair. So it wasn't the traditional wheelchair. And the way that was set up, it has a curvature by this kind of like where the armrest would be. But that didn't move, and so it kind of made sliding board transfers a little bit more difficult. I had to angle it a little bit more than you would with another wheelchair, and I felt like I had less stability and less surface area to work with because of that. It wasn't anything I couldn't work around. It was still doable, but it was a little bit more of a challenge transferring to do the ADLs and transferring in and out of the car. The sliding board was a little bit more difficult with that chair. So I returned home, and then that was around 12, and that's when my roommate Devin took over as my caretaker for the day. We first went to Kenwood Mall, and our first stop was the food court. And I had Chipotle, and that was pretty okay. I didn't really have any difficulty there. The food court there, it was accessible for me to get a table because they just have this kind of bar-like table, and it's lower to the ground, and all I had to do is slide the stool out and then go right in. The next place we went was a establishment called Dry Goods. It's brand new, actually. That was interesting. They had a sale going on for the summer clothes, so it was kind of packed. In some areas, I couldn't get around very well. It was kind of packed, but it wasn't to the point where I couldn't access anything in the store. I might have had to take a roundabout way, but I was able to access everything. Then we went to Victoria's Secret, and that was also okay. Those stores are actually pretty spacious in that area. And then I also went to Lachey's, which is a restaurant, OTR, restaurant bar, sports bar. And I went to Fountain Square. And yeah, so those are all the places that I actually went. My public restroom assessment. So I did my public restroom assessment in the Kenwood Mall. And it was difficult. I didn't have the sliding board because you don't want the sliding board in the bathroom. And it was really hard for me to get my placement so that I could utilize the grab bar and position the wheelchair. And then once again, I had that obstruction in the wheelchair that I couldn't take it off, so I was stuck with it, and I had to work around that as well. And just, it's a public restroom, so the seat's really dirty and gross, and I, didn't want to touch it, just wanted to use that bar. And I actually did require assistance from Devin doing that. It had plenty of room, though. It was big enough. It was just a matter of getting onto the toilet and getting off. The sink, they didn't have a lower sink, so, I kind of had to raise my arms up and wash my hands that way. crossing the intersection. I crossed a lot of intersections that day. I was downtown and I was in OTR, so I did a lot of crosswalk work there. And the crosswalk was okay. I never felt like I was rushed. I felt like the timing was appropriate. And yeah, I didn't have any issues there. I didn't have to worry. I didn't feel like anybody was going to run me over or anything like that. And how did I feel? I did not like it. I hated sitting all day. I didn't like that. And I just felt very weird and oh my gosh, is this wrong? So I just felt a little off about the whole thing and wasn't sure how to act or what to do. And I wasn't really focusing too much on other people's reactions because I was focusing on how I was going to do my day. I'm not used to this, so it required a lot of my attention. But I did ask my friend Devin. I asked, what's people's reactions looking like? And she told me, she said she saw a lot of stares and looks. My personal favorite, I was downtown on the sidewalk going along, and this man, I think he took like 2 steps to the side. He wasn't even really in my way, but like just made an extra 2 steps to the side, which made me feel really weird. I was like, okay. So the reaction was people looked and people stared, and I did have one kid ask me, "Are you okay?" That was cute because little kids just say what's on their mind. Now, barriers from being independent. Well, I couldn't drive, so that made me a little less independent. If I wanted to go somewhere, I had to rely on somebody else, and I couldn't exactly leave when I wanted to leave. And the bathroom, I needed assistance there, probably because I'm not used to doing that. And the dressing room. I went into a dressing room. I tried on clothes, or I tried to try on clothes. And I needed significant help from my roommate, and even then, I got frustrated and gave up. But I'll talk about that later. Oh, look, most frustrating. So I actually got most frustrated when we were trying on clothes at Dry Goods because they did have a bigger changing room, and it had a bench, and it did have a handle, but it was just so hard to transfer myself out of the wheelchair and onto the bench, and the bench wasn't very big, so it wasn't like I could lay my legs flat and move them with my arms, and it wasn't working out. I would say one improvement for that would be to get a longer bench so that you could lay your legs completely on it, because that was really frustrating. As a girl, it was just really frustrating that I couldn't try on clothes. That made me upset. And I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but there was this bar. It was more of a bar, and it was on a corner in OTR, and it had like a step up, just one step up, about 5 inches high, and I couldn't get in. They did not have a ramp of any sort for you. So I was upset because it looked like a cool place too. And it was pretty narrow though, so even if I had gotten past that obstacle, it might have been just too narrow with all the chairs and the tables and for me to be able to get through comfortably. That was frustrating, not being able to go somewhere you wanted to go simply because you're in a wheelchair. That's not fair, and it stinks. And yeah. So the most enlightening part was just going about your day every day and overcoming the obstacles you have to overcome that a lot of people take so much for granted. You really take a lot for granted until you're stuck and this is what you got and you've got to make the best of it. And just that was enlightening to me that, our advantages are obstacles for people. Something you would never notice, is a big issue for others. So that was an enlightening experience. It's kind of sad, but enlightening. So, client factors. So, some emotional client factors. I was frustrated, and some personality traits of me changed. I'm normally not a shy person, but I was really shy, and I felt very self-conscious, and my self-esteem went down, and I was always apologizing for being in the way. I felt like I was in this thing, and it was just taking up so much space, and I felt like I was burdening people because of it, and I just, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. So it changed my personality a little bit for the day. And at the end of the day, I kind of felt a little sad. Like I was just not in a happy mood by the end of the day. Now, as far as like a physical client factor, I needed a lot of endurance in my arms. My arms were really tired by the end of the day. So another client factor that I was not expecting was the blood flow. The blood flow to my feet. My feet were swollen. Just laying your feet like that and, not moving them around at all and just sitting still with your feet in this position for a prolonged period of time. They were cold. My feet were freezing. And they were really swollen, like they kind of had a purplish color to them. And because my feet were swelling, I actually kind of had a little bit of like a spot from my shoe because my feet were swelling up and my shoes were a little tighter than they normally would be on me by the end of the day. So that was interesting. Now when I did the walkabout, so I did that in OTR and in downtown, and their crosswalks, they have adequate amount of time. Not all of them have the crosswalk painted on the pavement. There was rarely ever any safety islands. I think one or two between OTR and downtown. The sidewalks, they're rigid. There's bumps in them. Majority of them were slanted, so I was using one arm a lot because I was trying to overcome that slant. And so public transportation, I took the streetcar, and that was interesting. All I had to do was go on my app, and I had to download the app, Cincy Easy Ride, and so I was able to see the route and whatnot and around the times they come. And so we found one of the stations, because they'll tell you where stations are located to get picked up and dropped off. And we went to a station, and we went up to the machine, and I just put in my card, bought the tickets. It was cheap, too. And then when the streetcar came, I went on smoothly, and I went ahead and put my locks on and whatnot, and they don't have any strap-downs or securements or anything like that. So when it would stop, I felt my wheelchair skid a little bit, which was a little concerning. And then also, when I was getting off of the streetcar, there's like this much of a space in between the streetcar and the platform. And I was on my way out, and I guess I wasn't going fast enough, or I didn't see it, but I got stuck. I had to go back and do it again and, really be cautious about it because I got stuck the first time. So just having that little bit of a pathway obstruction really did it for me. So that was my wheelchair simulation, and it was a enlightening experience. It was fun at times, and it was not so fun at times. So I got a lot out of it. And yeah, so that was my simulation.